Since Congress released its report about dozens of baby food companies selling tainted toxic metals, lawsuits have piled up against manufacturers. So why are regulators still allowing these products to be sold on the shelves? Attorney Stephen Luongo joins me to talk about it. Steve, this is easy math, isn't it? You know, the FDA doesn't do anything for years and years. Congress has to put together a special committee because they're getting so much information about this baby food being contaminated with arsenic and cadmium and lead and mercury and about every heavy metal on the planet. And so Congress says, look, you better do something or we're going to pass some legislation to make you do it. FDA still asleep at the wheel.
It seems like every week we're back here talking about these government agencies that aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
We're constantly talking about what is the FDA doing, what is their purpose, why are they not getting involved? And that's exactly what we have here. Is we have several whistleblowers, several lawsuits throughout the country, bringing to attention to the public forum, hey, these heavy metals are in the baby food, they're susceptible to these infants, and they're causing damage. And the FDA is just sitting on their hands.
Well, to be clear, these are lawsuits where the lawyers have tested the baby food, and they found skyrocketing levels of arsenic, parts per billion, well above 100, well above what the legal level should be. And so the problem is these heavy metals cause developmental problems in children. They're very specific about how they go about that. You have families that feed the same baby food, whether it's beech nut or whatever it is, to the child year after year, day after day, and it's cumulative. The heavy metals are cumulative in the child's body. What companies are now being sued?
So you mentioned one earlier, beech nut is obviously one of them, but we have the big boys. We have Gerber, we have Campbell Soup, we have Walmart, as well as Nurtural, In Company, and Earth's Best.
We'll post them up on this show,
Absolutely.
up on this slide, so people can see it. What's happening with the FDA? There's no surprise. They're silent about it. They're almost embarrassed by the fact that Congress had to put together a special committee, and when they did the job, they said, what are you guys waiting for to do something? If you don't do something, we're going to do something congressionally, because we know this. We know that the biggest problem, here's one thing they found, the biggest problem is rice, okay? Yes. They use rice in the baby food as a filler because it's cheap. But the rice has a tendency to suck up every heavy metal around in the soil, right?
Absolutely. Rice is the major product, specifically the rice cereal products that they're feeding these infants. And what the heavy metal that is really becoming the problem is the arsenic, the inorganic arsenic that's being soaked up by this rice. The FDA, they did give some guidance last year as far as what an acceptable parts per billion is for the arsenic. They have it listed at 100, even though they also give guidance as far as what is acceptable in bottled water, and it's at 10 points per billion.
Right. Bottled water, the EPA has to admit it's 10 parts per billion, but they're saying, okay, but where it comes to feeding children baby food, you can give them 100 parts per billion.
Right.
Look, the FDA is guided. They said, well, we have to be guided by science. Can you imagine the FDA saying, we need to be guided by science? There's so much science out there right now, it's overwhelming. But the problem is what you have is this gaggle of corporate-controlled stooges that are involved in the regulatory aspect. And all they're doing is they're just jockeying for a job. You know, the person looking at this case may be saying, you know what, when I leave here, maybe beech nut will give me a job where they pay $500,000 a year. That's exactly what's happening with virtually every agency, but the FDA is really one of the worst revolving door that's taken place. Congress proposed the Baby Food Safety Act. Tell me about it.
So that was proposed by Raja Krishnamurthy, a congressman out of Illinois. And what they are proposing and giving guidance on is saying FDA is doing nothing as far as giving these levels and regulations for all four of these major heavy metals. So they went ahead and did it. And they proposed for the arsenic, they're proposing the 10 parts per billion or 15 parts for the cereal, as well as for lead, 5 parts per billion, cadmium, 5 points per billion, and mercury, 2 points.
Yeah, cadmium is probably one of the worst also. Thank you for joining me, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.